Tonight, calls for a royal commission into the massive fish kill on the Darling River near Broken Hill, and Port Augusta chosen as one of Australia's favourite towns.
From our 7 Spencer Golf studios, your nightly news with Louise Hedger begins now.
Good evening. There's calls tonight for a commission of inquiry into the mass fish kill at Menindee. The Australia Institute says a thorough investigation would stop the blame game and yield real answers into the true cause of the devastation.
Enough of the finger pointing, let's find out who's to blame.
People will literally blame anyone and anything as long as it avoids them having to take the serious policy steps.
The Australia Institute has welcomed Labor's calls for a commission of inquiry to find out the cause of hundreds of thousands of fish deaths on the Darling River near Menindee last week. Mr Campbell says there's evidence of mismanagement and over-allocation of water across the river system.
When huge amounts of water are being diverted into private dams, the government has absolutely no data on how much water is held in big upstream storages.
He says ministers are blaming drought, some are blaming low inflows, locals are blaming ministers. Enough is enough.
Another reason why there's no water in the lower Darling and why all these fish are dying is a large amount of water, equivalent to about 2 Sydney harbours worth of water, were drained out of the Menindee lakes. It was drained out at a time when South Australia was actually in flood. What was behind that is entirely unclear.
The Australian Institute says it will keep holding those in charge to account and continue to support a water commission.
We really need a commission of inquiry or a royal commission into what got us to this mess.
Patrick Royenke, 7 Spencer Golf News.
Police say they are still working to formally identify a body which was found outside of Broken Hill yesterday, believed to be that of missing grandmother Marilyn Grubb. The 64-year-old was last seen on December 30, believed to have left a property north of the town. A search covering 20,000 square kilometres has been underway for the last 2.5 weeks, using significant resources including police aircraft. Yesterday afternoon, police found a body near a vehicle on a dirt track a few kilometres off the Silver City Highway. A report is being prepared for the coroner. For the second time this week, a grass fire has burnt its way through bushland on Port Pirie's Wandera Road. The old railway yard was impacted again, with the Metropolitan Fire Service working to extinguish flames before it spread to neighbouring buildings. Traffic was temporarily redirected as the blaze was contained. Anyone with information is asked to contact Crime Stoppers on 1800 333 000. Port Augusta residents are up in arms over the uncertain future of the town's City Safe Patrol. The service is awaiting a council review to find out whether their contract will be renewed, and locals are taking action to make sure the service stays put.
Offering a refreshing drink on a day climbing towards 50 degrees. The duties of the City Safe Patrol go further than helping police Port Augusta.
We take care of people's welfare, we look after the transitional population when they're in town, we make sure people are safe in the heat.
As well as enforcing dry zones and monitoring antisocial behaviour.
We've always felt safe, and no matter what, they're only a phone call away.
The service has been operating for 11 years, but with the program's contract due to expire in just a few months, some fear this year could be its last.
To see them actually leave this community will be a very, very sad day.
Last year, the council extended City Safe's contract for just 1 year instead of the normal 3 years, so they could review the service.
The purpose of the review is to make sure the scope in the contract covers what the community needs.
That review will be released in just a few months' time, and the community is concerned that the contract, which is currently $240,000 a year, will go out to tender.
If this service does go up for tender, no one else can duplicate them.
The secret of the model is to have a great rapport and have a lot of trust, and it's taken, as I said, 11 years we've built that trust in those relationships.
Local Star Divine is going to great lengths to make sure City Safe stays, starting a petition to gather signatures of support. And do you think the community will get behind this petition?
Absolutely.
Garth Burley, 7 Spencer Golf News.
The state's cereal harvest is almost complete, with many farmers glad to see the end of a horror 2018. However, the Lower Eyre Peninsula's high rainfall has seen growers reap the benefits of prosperous grain prices.
It's a spectacular sight. 4 headers working hard together to see the end of the season, and Eyre Peninsula's harvest has delivered the goods, with almost half of the grain for the 2018-19 season coming from the Western region.
Viterra received 3.9 million tonnes of grain for the 2018-19 season, with just over 1.9 million tonnes delivered into the Western region receival sites.
But across the state, it's been far from an easy feat this season for our farmers due to drought, frost and unseasonal rainfall.
The state's harvest is nearly winding up. Most people are finished or close to finish, and I think fair to say most people will be glad to see the end of 2018.
While the EP managed to produce reasonable yields, it's been a frustrating finish.
The actual harvest itself has been frustrating with rain delays, moisture issues, falling number tests, the frost damage, the odd harvest fire and harvest ban.
But for some that can see it, there's been a silver lining. With the drought across the country causing a drop in production, farmers have been rewarded locally in SA with bumper prices.
We've seen some phenomenally high prices for grain right across the board, from cereals, wheats and the barleys, cross grades, and we've also seen, very high numbers for canola.
Grain prices have been good, and so we'll get out of it not too badly for most people.
Casey Trelaw, 7 Spencer Gulf News.
Many tourism operators in Port Augusta will be overjoyed tonight after their city was announced as a runner-up in this year's What If Australian Town of the Year Awards. It's the first town from South Australia to ever make the list.
Pristine waterways, renowned natural beauty and high tourist demand. Port Augusta has notched yet another accolade, with the town placing 3rd in What If's Aussie Town of the Year Awards.
And it's really about recognising 10 deserving locations across the country that we've found have made a unique contribution to Australian tourism.
The towns are judged across 4 pillars: affordability, demand, accommodation, as well as traveller ratings from the What If site. Demand in the town climbed by 10% this year.
Port Augusta really excelled in the travel accommodation review score category as well, with over 4.5. So I think that's why they did so well this year.
Taking out the top 2 places were Port Fairy in Victoria and Albany in Western Australia. Port Augusta is the first South Australian town to make the list.
Very proud of Port Augusta, very proud of the people that have made this result occur.
The council says the award-winning Arid Lands Botanic Gardens and the Wadlata Outback Centre are just some of the great attractions that entice tourists into town.
Tourism is the backbone, and we need to lean on that more and more. And again, I keep saying, using our natural areas that we can promote.
Retaining the town's award-winning image is the council's next step.
We want to make sure that our image is a great image and that people want to come in and stay.
Garth Burley, 7 Spencer Gulf News.
Stay with us. Still to come tonight, Port Lincoln gathers to raise awareness of endometriosis, and tourism dollars continuing to flood into the Yorke Peninsula. Welcome back. Endometriosis is one of the most common conditions affecting young women, but it is still widely misunderstood. A Port Lincoln group is working hard to change that and to increase awareness in regional communities.
Annual surgeries, infertility, constant bloating, severe fatigue and debilitating pain. It's a snapshot of life for a woman with endometriosis. But too often, sufferers can go without a diagnosis or treatment for 10 to 20 years.
I wasn't diagnosed until my mid-20s. It was known that I may have it, but it wasn't really taken seriously until then. So it's been a long journey, and I'm 31 now.
Despite doctors' warnings about possible infertility, today Leah now has 2 healthy twin girls and is learning to live with the condition. Now she and other local sufferers are sharing their stories to raise much needed awareness to everyone in the community.
We've got bosses, we've got colleagues, we've got school students, and everyone needs to know what endo is so that we can provide a huge support.
A support group is now operating in Port Lincoln and last night held their first awareness night. Concerns were raised about the lack of research and knowledge about the disease, as well as calls for education about the condition to be taught in schools.
And maybe as much educating the teachers as well, so that they're not looking negatively along the young women who are not managing to make it to school.
If you think you may have endometriosis, the advice is to see a GP or gynaecologist and to not be afraid to get a second opinion. Casey Law, 7 Spencer Gulf News.
South Australians are opting to holiday closer to home more than ever before. According to a recent National Visitors Survey, tourists spent a whopping $200 million in the Yorke Peninsula alone.
Spending big bucks to further explore our own backyard. South Australians are opting to travel shorter distances during their vacation periods, which is proving to be a massive win for the local tourism industry.
We've had a large increase in tourists, and that's really good for our economy because it does obviously boost the economy and gives us more money coming into the area.
The Yorke Peninsula has spent the past 2 months smashing its tourism records. Since 2016, more than 1 million people have chosen to explore Yorke's pristine beaches and national heritage sites, injecting a cool $100 million per year into the local economy. Tourism continues to be a key driving force, with $50 million pumped into the Yorke Peninsula's economy in the past 2 years by one-day visitors.
Although a lot of the people I'm hearing are still South Australian people, Adelaide people.
The true test will come in 2019, which will see the region debut as a cruise ship stopover destination. 1,200 passengers will be sinking their feet into Wallaroo's sandy beaches later this year, opening up a new $180 million market for the Yorke Peninsula.
Got the cruise line coming in December, that's the first one. There'll be 3 coming in the 1920 summer, and so we're working really hard this year to make sure that we're ready for that.
Dominic Beaton, 7 Spencer Gulf News.
Devonport residents just outside of Port Augusta will be much closer to medical treatment after the reopening of the community clinic. The service was closed for several months after a lack of staff, forcing Devonport residents to travel to Port Augusta for their health needs. Aboriginal Health Service Pikawea reopened the clinic this week, which will open for 3 days a week. Port Pirie jobs could be under threat after menswear chain Ed Harry went into administration. 100 jobs statewide have been put into question, including all of its staff operating at its Port Pirie store. Ed Harry's managing director, David Clark, has attributed the company's downturn to a particularly tough Christmas sales period. A clearance sale of its products has been rolled out nationwide while creditors assess its current performance. Anyone with a gift card will have up to a month to purchase products until they're closed off. Regional students looking to study science, maths and technology at university are now eligible for support. New federal government funds are designed to encourage more to consider a career in those industries.
From Olympic Dam in the north to Whyalla in the west and Port Lincoln in the south, this region's economy is dependent on industries reliant on science, maths and technology. Add the looming submarine build in Adelaide to the list, and that demand for skills is only going up. But the pipeline from schools and universities into these jobs is running low at the worst possible time.
It's perceived that points are easier to accumulate for the ATARs in some of the humanities subjects than they are in some of the hard science subjects.
Looking to change that, the Commonwealth is now offering grants as an incentive. Over 3,000 scholarships worth $18,000 are now available for regional students to support them as they study a STEM-related course.
The money comes to the student makes their own mind up whether they have to spend it on accommodation, whether they have to spend it on books, whether they spend it on travel, whatever it might be.
By getting regional kids interested in these subjects, Mr. Ramsey says he hopes they'll eventually return to places like Whyalla and fill critical gaps in regional SA.
We need some of these skilled professionals back in the country. We know how hard it is to get skilled professionals to relocate out of cities into the country.
For more information, contact one of Rowan Ramsey's offices in Whyalla, Port Pirie and Kadina. John Hunt, 7 Spencer Gulf News.
The Silverton Hotel has received a funding boost to help support its annual country music festival. The Bush Pub has been given $20,000 from the state government.
A cash injection for one of the Far West's newest events. The Silverton Sunsets Music Festival was first held in February last year to critical acclaim, the country music event receiving an overwhelming attendance in its first time out.
We did it in a time of the year when they say don't do anything in Broken Hill, but at the end of the day we did bring 670 people to far outback New South Wales, and they had a great experience.
The festival is back again in 2019, this time being held at the start of March. And to help with bringing it back, the festival has received a cool $20,000 from the state government's Incubator Event Fund.
It was a pretty lengthy and time-consuming applications, but we were able to tick a lot of the right boxes, and we were fortunate enough to get 20,000, which we're wrapped with.
The Incubator Event Fund offers one-off grants of up to $20,000 to those staging an event for the first or second time. The money can go towards staging, venue hire, research, marketing and publicity activities. Mr Price says the lineup for this year's event is a good one.
They're all heading this way on the 1st, 2nd and 3rd of March.
And if it continues its growth, the sun won't be setting on this event anytime soon. Patrick Reinke, 7 Spencer Gulf News.
Stay with us after the break. New basketball hoops for Crystal Brook, and we'll take a look at which fish are biting across the Gulf. Welcome back. Crystal Brooks' junior basketball club has been offered a lifeline thanks to a federal grant. $22,000 will be spent on the facilities, ensuring they're up to safety standards.
Light at the end of the hoop. One of Crystal Brook's favourite sporting communities now has a future through the Community Sport Infrastructure Program.
Those of us who come from the regions have been leaning very hard on the Cabinet, the Minister, the PM, Josh Frydenberg to say, how about tipping a few more dollars in the box on this particular program?
Over 40 years old, the decaying frames have become an eyesore next to the new sporting facility. As you can see behind me, time has been quite harsh on the basketball frame, with rust damage making it a health concern.
The old ones are on a winch sort of pulley system, and they have deteriorated over the years and they're quite dangerous to wind back.
Many were worried the club would have to close due to safety concerns. They'd been tirelessly fundraising, yet were unable to achieve replacing the frames.
We're looking at sponsorship and that for the club, but as being a small community, the local businesses can only donate so much to clubs.
The club will receive 4 new frames and an upgrade to the court's fence.
Really good to be able to help at this local level with local clubs to just sort of grow their product and keep their facilities up to scratch.
Dominic Beaton, 7 Spencer Gulf News.
And now for a look at what's biting across the Gulf, here's Fish and Tips.
So welcome another week around the Gulf Fishing Tips in Port Pirie. Amazing time of the year to be fishing. The hot weather, it brings our blue swimmer crabs out in the numbers. We've seen some snapper floating around, some panties, so just have a look at that. One of the things we reported on recently was the yellowfin whiting. On a lot of our coastal beaches, we've got yellowfin whiting at this particular stage. Some of the people told us that they were using the prawn that they buy from the supermarkets. If you actually go into the PIRSA website, there is actually an act that says that that's not available. You cannot use that. So perhaps we just have a look at that, and we'll see you next week.
G'day and welcome to Fishing Tips in Port Lincoln. Well, the big news over the last few weeks has been tuna. So they've certainly arrived on our offshore grounds, and there's been lots of recreational boats getting into them, which has been really good. So there's been some patches of fish on the south side of Thistle Island, and then over the Coffin Bay side, they've been out around the main islands, Rocky, Greenlee and Hummocks. Most of the fish are in that 8 to 12 kilo range, but there have been a few fish up in the 20s to mid-20s, which has been pretty good. Back inshore, closer to home, Thistle Island's been producing quite a few nice whiting lately, and the Farm Beach grounds over near Coffin Bay have continued to produce some really nice whiting over the summer period, which has been good. And there's been some nice garfish and tommies in that area as well. Well, that's all for this week. We'll see you again with more fishing tips next week.
Hi, welcome back to Whyala's Fishing Report this week. With the weather heating up, some good crabs are starting to move into Whyala. The deeper water has been the best. Still a lot of small crabs amongst them though, so work through the sizes to get a good feed. Snapper have been hit and miss across Whyala. The shallows have been producing just before sunrise and just after sundown, and also fishing on the outgoing tide throughout the night in the shallows has been producing as well. The deeper drops down south in the middle of the day had been producing good fish too. For the land based around Whyala, silver whiting down towards Cowlard's Landing.
Stay with us after the break. We'll have all the weather details. Welcome back. Let's take a look at what the weather's doing across the regions. Here's Britt Aylen.
Thanks, Louise. Well, the cool change we've all been waiting for has finally arrived, but temperatures were still right up there this morning and early afternoon. 47 was the top at Port Augusta today, Whyalla 41, Port Lincoln 31 degrees with a few showers, Broken Hill 46 and Port Pirie was 43. On the satellite, a low-pressure trough moving northeastwards passed over Port Augusta, then moved further inland ahead of a cool change. On the waters, southerly winds at 10 to 15 knots and swells to 2.5 metres. Sunrise due just after 6:30 in the morning, with the sun due to set at around 8:42. Port Augusta, mostly sunny tomorrow with a top of 30 degrees. A windy day for Broken Hill, 41. Showers for Whyalla, Port Pirie and Coffin Bay. Port Lincoln, fine and 26. Now moving ahead to the weekend, a fine couple of days for Port Lincoln with temperatures in the late 20s before starting next week off on a sunny note, 30 degrees on Monday. Cleve, a top of 24 on Saturday. A few showers expected on Sunday, but sunny and 34 on Monday. Woodner, partly cloudy through the weekend, with showers expected on Monday, warming back up to 39. Showers across the weekend at Whyalla with a wet start to next week. Port Augusta, showers and 30 on Saturday, 35 the top on Sunday, sunny and back up to 41 degrees on Monday. Kadina, cloudy on Saturday with showers coming through on Sunday and Monday. A fine weekend ahead for Port Pirie with maximums in the mid-30s. Temperatures rising a little on Monday, sunny with a top of 38. Clare, 29 on Saturday, 32 on Sunday, fine and 37 to kick off the week. And a windy Saturday for Broken Hill, the cool change coming through with a top of 34. Sunday back up to 38, Monday 39. And Louise, I think we're all looking forward to some slightly cooler days.
That we are, Britt. Thank you for that. And that is your nightly news for this Thursday evening. Thanks for joining us. We'll have updates later, but until then, enjoy your evening. Good night.